Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2023 and our first episode in 2023 of Miracle Conversations. This is actually the third episode of a series that we started back in November in preparation for this year. And here on Miracle Conversations, I meet with Dr. Dave Asomaning every single month, and we talk about the concept of miracle mindsets. And the way that we're doing it with this year's theme is we are combining A Course in Miracles, which is a classic book that has created the foundation for Dave's teaching method and coaching method, combined with a book that he wrote called Nightmares to Miracles. And we're kind of synthesizing the two. And this year we have a theme. This is all going to sound a bit repetitive if you're new here, but the theme is miracles. And it's just ironic that it's the first time we've worked on a theme that was kind of so overt versus before themes have been things like forgiveness and love and atonement. So this year we are just diving deep into miracles. So again, I'm Brittany New, an entrepreneur living in Barcelona, and this is Dr. Dave Asomaning. And Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Thank you, Brittany. Good to be with you again, and greetings to our audience. As you mentioned, our first show in 2023, January 2023. It's good to be here. That was a wonderful layup, Brittany, for what we've been doing. Thank you for that. So, I am an executive coach, and I live in Florida, in the Palm Beach area. And I specialize in supporting CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs, as well as other leaders to develop miracle mindsets, as you mentioned, Brittany. So it's my deep conviction that miracle mindsets lead to improved effectiveness, ease, and fulfillment in the professional and personal lives of the leaders I work with. And I'm sort of the main guinea pig for most of this work. I've applied most of the things I use in my coaching method to myself, and achieved the sort of beneficial results from having used myself as the guinea pig over time. So you've covered the different themes that we have for the year. Excellent on that, Brittany. Thank you. So I think the next main thing to focus on then is the evolution of our work together, culminating now in you giving a shout out to people about where they can find you. So let me just say a quick word about Brittany as we proceed here. So we started several years ago now with you helping me redesign and make more attractive some very basic and unattractive worksheets I had. I would just send these to clients as teaching guides. And after the first few transactions we did with things that you fixed and beautified for me, I was like, whoa, this is amazing stuff. I just kept sending more and more because I loved so much what you were doing. Then we pivoted to course modules eventually. My online course, which is sort of your main area, or it was at the time, you helping people like myself whip our online courses into shape. And you did a remarkable job with the modules. I sent you raw audio and video, I guess you could call it, and you whipped all of that stuff into shape remarkably. And then so then I used the modules to serve as the foundation for this book that we're talking about this year, Nightmares to Miracles. More on that in a little bit. And then now you're helping me just in the most amazing way with this show, doing the interviews with me so I can articulate sort of what my method is and other what I call riches around miracle mindset. And now we're doing the book in more detail, and then just behind the scenes, chopping everything up into a written blog, into an audio podcast, and then into a YouTube video. Just incredible. I mean, it's just the stuff you do for me. So I want people to know about this, and it's a pleasure to work with you, and it's really, really high functioning what we do together. So anything you want to say about your work, Brittany, for our audience?
Thank you for that amazing shout out, as always, Dave. I really appreciate it. And yeah, for anyone watching, if you need graphic design services, I do a lot of different things. At the time, it was more online courses when Dave and I started working together, but now my specialty is more in branding for new businesses or specific products, digital products in particular. And if you have, I don't know, a show that you want to get started that you feel like, we kind of align on as people and we could have a dialogue about a topic, then reach out and maybe we could co-host something together like I do with Dave. I really enjoy this, but I wouldn't be able to do this and participate if it wasn't something that was in alignment with the teachings that I try to focus on as a self-learner and self-improvement practitioner. So yeah, thank you for creating this space, Dave, and I'm sure that this show is getting out to all the people in your audience and really changing lives and helping people see things more positively. So shout out right back to you for doing what you do and being amazing. But yeah, my website is brittanynew.com, going back to where to reach out to me. So yeah, what's next?
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, Brittany's well worth it, just on a personal level and a professional level. We've actually never met in person. I love the fact that you, for the longest time, have lived and worked in Barcelona, Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been able to carry on this very productive work relationship,
Mm-hmm.
doing this and getting this, as you pointed out, this information out to the world to
Mm-hmm.
help the world become a better place. So, yeah, please reach out to Brittany and take advantage of her incredible expertise if you're at all inclined to check it out. So yeah, so what's next is we're going to do the miracle principles from the beginning of A Course in Miracles. Don't want to get too into the weeds about how the course is structured. Maybe another time we can do a show on just that, how it's structured and how to get the most out of the course itself. It's a big book and it takes quite a bit to dig into it. But for now, in line with our theme for this year, miracles, which is again something we landed on thanks to you, Brittany, as a proposal you made for us. I love it. We're going to look at the next set of principles. This is the third set we're looking at. There are 50 of these miracle principles right at the beginning of the Course in Miracles. So we're in the third set of 10. We're going to talk about those in just a moment. And I also want to add that for me personally, I am tracking through the year with lesson 47, which says, God is the love in which I trust. This is a holdover from last year when our theme was love. And I just find this lesson very, very powerful to me when I'm in a quandary about what to do, what to say, next step in the course of action I'm unsure about. As I ruminate on this phrase and the teachings under it, God is the strength in which I trust, I find myself settling into an openness to divine direction, and then I'll usually get an answer as to precisely what to do to be effective in the situation. So I want to keep reminding myself to stay with that on the miracle path that we're on. And just a quick testimonial as well. This could be something that we use as a call to action for our audience. We haven't done it much, but we learn as we go. So the last several weeks have been an amazing time for me with my clients. I'm beginning to hear feedback from clients like never before about miracle breakthroughs they're having. So it's just one thing after another where clients are like, oh, this miracle happened. This miracle happened. I had a friend who was terminal and they got a recent checkup and they're not terminal anymore. I was waiting for some money to come through and I was just pounding my head. This is multiple clients. I mean, it's like the money came through and I'm not bragging as such because I always say, Natural Dave is as dumb as a doorknob, degrees and whatnot, notwithstanding. I always say I'm as dumb as a doorknob. I don't know anything from anything, really, compared to the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
The teachings make all the difference. I'm just a messenger helping to to your point earlier, Brittany, to share this with the world, and it's fairly predictable if they're used as taught, not by me, but in the course and elsewhere, they lead to these results. And so I'm just like, oh wow, okay, there's this avalanche of miracles from the people I work with. And it's the most exciting thing to know that what we're doing here is amplifying that process, where people can come out of suffering and pain and struggle and out of nightmare. So just a testimonial I wanted to share. And then we can, the point I was making earlier was maybe we can, over time, begin to invite people to share, if they're having miracle breakthroughs. Yeah. Related to what we share or unrelated from some other part of their lives where they get inspiration. So don't know if you have any reactions to any of that, and then we'll really get into the principles next. Yes.
No, that's wonderful. It'd be great if we could also, potentially get somebody on the show here with us if they wanted to talk about it. That would be wonderful if you have anyone who's not too camera shy.
That's a great thought. I will mull that over and see if there's anyone we could get on to, again, give their take on it. That's an excellent suggestion, Brittany. Let me check it out. The one thing about that that I usually think about, I have to let go of some of my earlier psychotherapy training that was like so strictly confidential that I don't want to ever put anybody in the space where they're disclosing stuff about themselves. But these, I already see a way around it where it's like, this is more about somebody's miracle work out in the world. Do you know what I mean? That it's not them as my client as much as it is how they've managed to be a witness and a facilitator to a miracle that's happened out there. So interesting opportunity for us, I think, there. All right, great. So we are going to start with miracle principle 21 as we shift over to these handful of miracle principles. And we're doing this in a very quick, light way. It's not sort of like we did in the 2 previous years we've been working together, where the whole show was dedicated to one lesson or one passage, and we go into great detail about it for the whole show. Here I'm just giving a few quick remarks, getting your reactions, Brittany, so that we can split our time efficiently between these principles and then the sections of the book I want to highlight. So my book, that is Nightmares to Miracles. So here we go. Principle 21. Miracles are natural signs of forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. So that's pretty straightforward. The whole practice here is to experience a sense of divine cleansing of all the things, the many things that cause us malaise, fear, guilt, anger, and to sense that that stuff is sort of washed away somehow, and out of the abundance of the love that we are experiencing from a higher power, God, Spirit, however you want to name it, that we are then able to extend that to other people who are holding on to blocks to their spiritual power. This is the sort of the loop, the virtuous circle. So that's the first principle that we'll look at. Brittany, anything you want to comment on with regard to that? Not to put you on the spot. You don't have to say anything if nothing comes to mind.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good.
Good. We're going to skip to the next one, which is 24. I'm leaving some of them out because they're too intricate for the kind of speed we're looking for in this call. So here we go. 24 says, miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead because you made sickness and death yourself and can therefore abolish both. You are a miracle capable of creating in the likeness of your creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. So there's a lot in here, but on a very simple level, I want to highlight that this is one of the places in A Course in Miracles where you get the word nightmare, which is also a word I use in the title of my book, Nightmares to Miracles. So it's just a nice, I wasn't deliberately borrowing from A Course in Miracles when I came up with the title and the theme in my book, but it's nice to see that there is definite overlap and confirmation of this idea here that as human beings, individually and collectively, we're all kind of in a sleep state. And the things that we experience, sickness, warfare, um, tragedies of all kinds, environmental conflicts, just everything that we experience, while very palpably real within our lived everyday realities, is described as a course as a nightmare, something we can wake up from, right? And that in the first sentence it says, even with things like healing the sick and raising the dead, we can abolish sickness and death because these are things that we brought into existence in sort of the wrong-minded part of ourselves. That's very powerful to hear that declared, and without getting into the intricacies of resurrection from the dead and healing radical sicknesses and why everybody isn't doing it if it's such an available thing. That's a whole big other conversation. But just the idea that we're on a channel that we turned to that creates these nightmares, whatever they are, and we can switch that channel. That's the basic message there. Powerful miracle principle. Again, let me check with you, Brittany, see if any thoughts.
No, I'm good. I'm good to go.
All right. So the next one is 25, which says miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which, when completed, is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all the dimensions of time. So I highlighted this principle because we spend a whole year on the concept of atonement in A Course in Miracles, and could easily spend 5, if not 10 years on this concept, just going deeper and deeper into it. But simply put here, my interest is in making a quick distinction about atonement. So on the one hand, atonement is described elsewhere in the Course as a device. That term, a specific term, is used in the Course. Atonement is a device, almost like a technological device, that God created to help absolve us from all of our mistakes and errors. And then the Course says the sole responsibility of a miracle worker is to accept atonement for themselves. So we're constantly in the process of accepting atonement, which relieves us or releases us from our accumulated mistakes and trials and tribulations and the malaise related to all of that, as I mentioned with the first principle. And then out of that sense of abundance, we're able to extend this to other people and help them to tap into atonement and sort of release themselves as well, right? So there's this releasing quality of atonement. And then here, it's saying something which seems very different, that miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness. So the project and release that I'm working on for myself, that you might be working on for yourself, Brittany, that others are working on for themselves, all over time, all of this becomes an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which is also known as atonement. All of us collectively in a state of complete forgiveness for everything. That's also known as atonement. I think that's just a very cool nuance to this idea of atonement. So I wanted to put that out there. Just one last thing I can't resist saying is that the Course is trying to correct a bunch of misunderstandings about atonement. We've talked extensively about this in past calls, where as human beings, we think that something has to be sacrificed. And very often we think in terms of a blood sacrifice. An animal has to be killed, a person has to be killed, somebody has to be punished to make up for a crime, a misdemeanor, a sin. And this atonement approach has nothing to do with any of that. It's purely based on the love of God, which is like a type of spiritual bleach almost. It's like it just cleans out whatever the problem is. The love is so powerful, it cleans out everything and restores it to its original pristine state. No sacrifice of any kind needed. So let's go to the final thing we're going to look at for today in the miracle principles. So we have principle 29 now. Miracles praise God through you. They praise him by honoring his creations, or her creations, if you want to be gender um, progressive about it, um, or their creations, I suppose, affirming their perfection. So miracles praise God by honoring God's creations, affirming their perfection. They heal because they deny body identification and affirm spirit identification. So I always say this whenever we see these ideas presented in the Course. The Course is not demonizing the body. It's just saying that it's an artifact of the dream state we live in. And it's a bit of a trick. It's intended to make us think that because it feels so real and palpable to us, everything that the body is concerned with is where reality really is. But in actuality, we are learning to wake up from this trick and to see that spirit identification is where true power lies, and that's where miracles come from. So, all right, that's it for today's miracle principles. Let me check with you one more time, Brittany, see if you have any thoughts or ideas, and then we'll go to the book.
Let's see. Yeah, those were some great principles that you selected here. I'm trying to look at all of them together and see what we've learned about miracles as a whole today. Yeah, I think that the spirit identification, it kind of reminds me of the Bible chapter about living in the spirit instead of in the body and kind of all the freedom that comes with that. So that's what comes to mind with that one. Just another parallel.
Yeah, great, great. Thank you for that. As you were starting with your thought there, it reminded me of this idea that to a fish, for instance, if a fish had human cognition and thought, the fish would say, of course, water is the only thing that exists. Wouldn't know of the bigger world that's out there. And we're in a similar dilemma. We only know the world that our bodies tend to tell us about. So we're overly identified with the limits that the body puts on things. And spirit is so much bigger and beyond that. And that so much of what we're learning here is how to not get tricked into identifying with the body and its limitations as the be all and end all, but that there's so much. So when you started, I was like, oh yeah, that's another sort of metaphor, semi-metaphor or something. So
Yeah, I read a metaphor that was along those lines in this money psychology book I just finished, and it was talking about how when people make financial decisions, they take into account their experiences and what they know. But he likened it to like when a child sees their parent go off to work, they don't understand like everything that the parent has to do outside the world, and their brain just fills in the gaps with kind of whatever they're imagining. Oh, dad has to go do this, and I'm gonna play in the meantime, and they're not like wondering what it all means. They think they have the whole picture, actually. They think they know all that there is to know. And so we do the same every day with our lives. And I think this practice is just reminding ourselves that we are that child that's filling in the gaps, and we are limited in what we know and to our own experience, but that's just less than 1% of what's actually going on in the universe. Mm-hmm.
great example. I love it. I love it. And kids can frequently speak as if they know everything
Yeah,
based
yeah.
on very limited amounts of what they know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you talking to me? Hush your mouth over there.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding you. But are you really talking to me like as a 7-year-old? Like you know everything in the universe? And it's a funny thing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not quite what you were saying, but I couldn't resist. So, um, all right. So, well, good. We're going to shift over to the book. So, I don't think we've done this in previous shows, the two shows where we started talking about the book, but I just wanted to highlight the book cover for a moment. And so, Nightmares to Miracles, that's the main theme of the book. And then the subtitle is Miracle Mindsets for CEOs, Executives, and Entrepreneurs to Transform Adversity into Success in Health, Wealth, Love, and Enlightenment. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it sort of explains um, the main audience for the book, although anybody can benefit from the book, and then how we're applying the mindset focus to transform um, adversity into success, and then in health, wealth, love, and enlightenment. So that's what we're going to focus on in chapter two of the book today. We did chapter one and intro materials in previous calls, and I'll get to those four things in just a moment: health, wealth, love, and alignment. But I just wanted to highlight a few more things on the cover. So the design is that we've got nightmares to miracles, then we've got these fireflies, we've got the sun. There's a secret code I've embedded into all of this that I allude to very indirectly, but I don't tell people explicitly the nature of. And I listen to people at different points along the way say, is this what the code is? Have I broken the code? Have I gotten what it is? I have to say, I'm not telling for now. I'll do a reveal somewhere down the line, but I know it's very oblique and indirect, but I wanna leave it like that with a sense of mystery. And then you can see these dream catchers on here. These Native American dream catchers are a light, very light background to this. And the book design person put those on there. It used to be an all white background. And I was so in love with the all white background. And then at one point they sent it back to me with these Dreamcatcher things. And I was like, what's that? What's that gray stuff that's blemishing the book cover? I was like, what's going on? And I just said it to myself. I didn't say it to them. And then after looking at it for a while, I was like, oh, those are dream. Wow, what a great way to tie that in with nightmares. So, um, so just a little background about the cover of the book. This is what the text looks like, and the margins, and the whole thing. Since with Brittany's help, I've learned to screen share more effectively. You'll get more of these details as we go along. Let me see here if I can share. Yes, so this is what I wanted to share next. We use this for the three keys, which was chapter one, the three keys to miracle success. And also in this diagram, you have the four doors to miracle success, right? So if you can see where my cursor is, it's right down here in about the middle of the red circle in this Venn diagram. And the four doors, again, are health, wealth, love, and enlightenment. So chapter two is really all about a method, a process, a protocol for getting a robust engagement with each of these areas in our lives, right? And so following the three keys, if you want to focus on health, for instance, there's sort of all the practical things you could study about exercise and nutrition and weight reduction. And there's just a lot of knowledge that we've accumulated, and it's all available, right? So one wants to avail oneself of one's specific goals. I want to shed 30 pounds or 10 pounds. I want to gain more muscle. I want to do more cardio. I want to go into remission from cancer. Whatever the goal is, one states it very clearly. That's the practical key at work with health. And then in the blueprint key, this is what the chapter lays out. In the blueprint key, one wants to list as many different pain points as one is aware of in one's own life, as well as in one's family upline, one's parents, one's grandparents, anything one knows about negative or adverse health circumstances, diabetes, cancer, heart problems. And then what one is doing there is one is doing the cleaning process. We'll talk more about cleaning, deleting negative programming. The whole of A Course in Miracles is about deleting negative programming, or blocks to love is what it calls it. But we've also touched on Ho'oponopono in the past, which is a Hawaiian approach to deleting negative programming. We'll talk about that more later on. So then in the final go with the health door, we then focus on the inner genius. What are specific spiritual forms of guidance that we're receptive to that will help us achieve the goals that we have in wellness and undo the negative programming that we're carrying, right? So then one can do the same thing with one's wealth goals. You want to retire with $5 million in the bank, or $10 million in the bank, or in investments, or you want to grow your business to a 7-figure business, a 10-figure business, whatever it is one wants to do in the wealth arena. You hear a lot of people talking now about generational wealth and generational health, and things like that. So you do the same. What's the goal? What's the in the blueprint key? What's in the way? Doing a thorough inventory about one's experiences with regard to wealth, and then cleaning that programming out, and then surrendering to higher power to for even deeper specific guidance, sort of like GPS navigational guidance about what to do in the wealth area to achieve one's goals. Then you can do the same thing in love and the same thing in enlightenment. So love really has to do with romantic relationships for most people, but the circle is much bigger than that. It's one's nuclear family, it's one's friendship circles, it's one's neighborhood, city, country, it's the whole world. It can include plants, animals, uh, pets, I mean, just all kinds of things, right? So enlightenment is sort of life with purpose and peace as a sort of generic way of talking about it, but it's even more specific. It's about this very intentional process of bringing more light into the individual human soul and using that to wake up from the sleep state in darkness that we're in that leads to nightmares. So those are the four doors. There's a lot one could say about each of these. Just a few more things in a moment, but let me pause, see, Brittany, if you have any thoughts, any feelings about any of this, and then two more things I want to say before we wrap up.
No, I think this is super clear. I mean, having the visual here in front of me helps everything be super crystallized. And I've also I've seen this graphic so many times, so no questions.
You
But
have seen
yeah.
this. You have helped with it in so many different places in so many different ways. Absolutely. Okay, so the final thing I wanted to say is that there's this concept of what I call the malicious ego. Right? So the malicious ego is a very destructive part of every human being's mind. This is sort of the model of the theory. Well, in the next show, we'll talk more deliberately about the model of the psyche I've come up with over the years to account for this. But malicious ego is very destructive. It's like a bully, and it doesn't let go of its hold on our minds without a fight, just like a bully. It will attempt to torture us, drag out the torture, and then eventually kill us in some way, shape, or form through an addiction, through some sort of chemical dependency, homicide, suicide, all kinds of things going on with it. You lay all of that at the feet of what I call the malicious ego. And I'm distinguishing the malicious ego from Freud's ego or Carl Jung's ego, where the ego has an important and beneficial function with regard to our defensive apparatus and the subconscious dynamics and so on. Again, we don't need to go down that hole, but I just wanted, for people for whom this is an area of deep interest and who would be concerned about the use of the ego as a negative, I want to highlight that A Course in Miracles is very clear that the ego is malicious, the one it's describing, and that it's not just simply Freud's or Jung's. And so this is one of the more interesting and challenging aspects of working with high-powered CEOs and leaders, as well as other people. It just seems as though it's hard to believe that there's a part of the human mind that is bullying us into doing the self-destructive things. It just seems that people are so rational about, well, if I just thought smarter, if I just did this better way, I could get a better outcome. And I'm like, I'm always saying it to different people, and there's no one person in particular I have in mind. I'm saying, I know this in my own life. This part of the mind that we're dealing with is like being on crack or being on heroin. Now, I don't know about crack and I don't know about heroin, but I know a little bit about alcohol and cigarettes from way back when I used to use those to self-medicate. And you can't just drop those things because they're not a good idea anymore. You know, they're addictive. They have a hold and they intend to keep seducing us to stay stuck to them. So the whole introduction of the malicious ego into this model, the three keys, the four doors, is a very important piece, because otherwise it just seems like we're on some benign, benevolent, rational journey to let bad things go and to embrace good things. It's a bit more of a fight than that because of the internal bullying. So that's it. In the three keys and four doors, I have my own sort of endless testimonials. We started earlier in the show me talking about an influx of positive testimonials from clients about miracles they're experiencing more and more. Um, in the interest of time, I won't really go into the miracles I've experienced through this process, which is for me the sort of the validator of it. Maybe in the next show, and with a more efficient use of time, I can highlight some of the benefits to myself of some of these things. So that's it. That's as much as I wanted to cover today. And I think we'll get better and better as the year goes on between the course materials that we want to share and the materials from the book. But over to you, Brittany, for any closing thoughts or remarks for today.
Yeah, I just wanted to, let's see, we like to end with a little practical application today. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what the plans are for the future shows, but it seems like as we discuss these principles from the book, we might be able to develop more of the practical applications from the book. So maybe today, to start with the introduction to the four doors, somebody could take inventory of where they are in each of the four doors. You have kind of the tools with that graphic that we were using to even start to do the practical and the blueprint keys, for example. But even just starting by taking inventory, how are you with your health? How are you with your wealth, your love, and your enlightenment? And it's a really good thing to do at the beginning of the year, so you can really establish more of your goals as you carry out for the rest of the year. I'm gonna take some inventory today. I'm inspired, so I think that's the application I'd like to close off with. But thanks again, Dave, for another good show.
Excellent, Brittany. Thank you for that call to action. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And glad to be on the show with you. Had a great time, and thanks for helping us be efficient with the whole thing. It was great. So,
Likewise.
looking
I
forward
love
to
it.
next month.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone in our audience. Leave
Mm-hmm.
comments. I'm getting more used to this. You know, subscribe. How does it go? Subscribe.
Like,
Click the bell
subscribe,
notification.
comment, share. Yeah.
Like it's like a whole package that people say, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
for the people I like following, it's kind of cute. They say it without fail, so I'm beginning to like get into
You're a
the
YouTuber.
right. I'm mimicking it. A lot of these people are younger people. You know, they're people in their 20s, and you know, they're just so natural with it. They've grown up on it, or it's
Oh,
just
you're young, Dave. Your age
yes.
is just part of the illusion.
Well, thank
Youth
you.
is
Quick question for you: do
forever.
you do that a
Mhm.
lot too? Do you like when
The
you're
like and subscribe.
yeah
Yeah, I mean,
yeah
I try to make it not so scripted every time, but or I try to think of what I would like people to leave in the comments if possible. Let me know what
right
video you'd like to see next. Let me know what the inventory is like of your health and your wealth and your love and
yeah
enlightenment, or which of the four doors you're going to need the most work on. Maybe that
right.
could be something you comment.
Sure. Good. Well,
Yeah.
we're all growing in this together. So
Hmm.
wonderful. Well, thank you. See you next month, Brittany.
All right.
Thank
See
you
you
so
next
much.
month, Dave. Bye bye.
Bye bye.